Welcome back.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Good to see you again, Prash.
And you too as well, Shweta. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're now following on from our previous episode to
Yeah.
this one, where we're talking a little bit more about, how our own personal faith has anchored us
Mm.
through navigating those choppy waters of separation and divorce, and how our own faith and spirituality has supported us that in our journeys. And then, Prash, the other thing was like our journeys of going through divorce and even filing for divorce was very different. So
Yeah.
it might be helpful, I think, for people that are watching this just to see those two different contrasting
Yeah.
experiences, not just male and female, though there is that dynamic too,
Mm.
but also just how, like, I remember you telling me like you were a lot more faster than I was
Mm.
because I took a lot longer. I took years. Right? So maybe we unpack that.
Yeah. No, it definitely sounds good. And I think before the call you mentioned like there's no right or wrong way. It's just kind of what works for you, right? And what feels right. And I think that's kind of super important for the audience to recognize because it's a time of uncertainty, right? Like what do you do?
Yes.
What's next? So, I love the way you put it, like there's no right or wrong way. It's just, what you're kind of feeling or how you see your future being as well, right? So you will know when the right time to file or kind of take the steps that are needed in order for you to get
Yeah.
to whatever goal you're trying to get to with your marriage, right? So but yeah, no, definitely let's kind of talk about the individual journeys. Like I know mine was very unique, and like you said, like mine was a lot faster, but
Yeah.
technically it wasn't though, right? Because I
True.
started off, I filed for divorce pretty much like a couple of months after separating, but the whole journey as a whole still took from what, let's just say start of 2018, we separated in February 14th in 2018, and it took me till just over a year for the divorce to be complete and to be officially separated and all that completed. But then it took a whole another year and a half to sell the property that I had. So for me, it
Mm.
was like there was still the attachment there, right? So still having to talk to my ex-wife or communicate with her with certain things when it came to selling the house. So yeah, so I guess for me it was like recognizing like at the start of it as well, like we separated. I also looked into like trying to do the divorce amicably. I can't say the word
Amicably.
amicably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try and do it that way, but I waited like I think it was at least 2 months I waited, and I just wasn't getting the other party cooperating with me to get it done smoothly. So in the end, he decided to file for divorce through a solicitor's and just take it legal at that point because I recognized that I wasn't able to make any movement with it. And I also recognized that by me trying to force it through, I'm still having to communicate with my ex-partner. And that wasn't healthy for me because I was getting frustrated every
Mm.
time we tried to communicate about the divorce and filing and doing the paperwork. We kept getting into a back and forth about events that had happened, what led us to this point, and that's the part I was just trying to kind of filter out. And all I needed was I've decided that I have done, and we've talked about it before, like, and actually you mentioned it with your workflow stuff. We've got it written down here that you shared with me last time that knowing that you have done everything you can do, right? And that gave me more confidence, I guess, to say, well, actually, I've done everything I can do to try and make this marriage work. And I even said to myself, actually, before me and my ex-partner bought the house, that for me, I said it to myself, like, this is the last thing. Like, if it doesn't work, once we have our own space and once we're into this in this property, and if we can't make it a home, it's all well and good buying a house, but then if we can't make it a
Mm.
loving home, and if it doesn't work, then I'm done with this relationship. I've done all the counseling stuff, marriage counseling. I supported the other person through their struggles as well and whatever they needed from me, and lost myself in the process. So for me, it was like, what point do I draw the line? And actually, my mom always said something to me as well, and it always stuck with me, and that was have some respect for yourself, because how long do you continue to lose yourself for someone else? And that really stuck with
Yeah.
me. I'm sure that probably resonates with you as well, right?
It does, it does. And then that probably links back to what was that? Because linking in your faith, because you told me that was
Yeah.
quite important to you. How was
Yeah.
that helping you, or did it play like a guiding force for
Yeah.
you? How was it for you?
So for me, it was, I'd probably say at the start of when I went through the motions of filing for divorce, I pretty much lost all my faith in God at that point. I just stopped praying as well. Like, and it's really upsetting as well because it's something my grandma really enforced as well, right? Like growing up, like, I would get up in the morning, go to the mandir, I would pray. I was only there for like about a couple of minutes, and that would set off my day. And I continued this habit as well when I was in that property with my ex-partner. But unfortunately, like I took on the victim mentality. So as soon as I separated, it was like, why is God doing this to me? I was really, bitter at the start. So I stopped believing in God and I lost my faith. And then for me, it transitioned into, and I know we covered it in the last episode, but putting my faith in the universe. So recognizing that the universe loves me and wants the best for me. But looking back at it now, that was the start of my journey again to re-find my faith in God. So it was believing in the universe again, because that wasn't a huge part of my life. I just always believed in God. And it's only until my cousins introduced me to a whole different mindset of law of attraction and believing in the universe that I just thought, well, what have I got to lose here? I might as well put my faith in this. So if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have something anchoring me and making me feel like there's a greater good out there and greater purpose, right? And the universe actually wants the best for me, right? So but for me, the faith truly came back in 2019. So towards the end 2019 in October, my grandma passed away. I was really close with her, grew up with her. She was like a second mum to me. So when she passed away, that really hit me hard. And even up until then, I still wasn't believing in God. But the one thing that changed that was she always wanted her ashes done in India. So me, my parents, my aunt, my uncle, and my cousin, and one of my other uncles as well. We all flew out to India to do her ashes and do it properly. And the one thing that changed for me was the fact that the day we were doing it, we were scattering her ashes, was the day of the God that she believed in, and we all followed as well. It was officially like his birthday on that day. And that wasn't by chance that, we didn't organize it that way. It was just by chance that that's the day it fell on. And it's only until the priest who was carrying out the ceremony told us that it's, this God's birthday today, and this is the day we're celebrating. And connecting the dots, actually, like doing my grandma's ashes on the same day, that just brought a whole load of faith back to me for, gaining that back with God. So, and I feel like joining that with the me already believing in the universe and a higher power, and then getting my faith back in God just kind of accelerated me to a whole new level from that point. So but yeah, it was a journey. Like it took me almost 2 years to gain that faith back in God, and it took something traumatic in my life to happen for me to figure out something better and open up my mindset again, I guess. So just like the divorce, right? Like without going through something traumatic and so life changing, you don't see the other side, right?
Yeah.
But how was it for you? Like how did the separation take and divorce?
Me. Yeah. I think so just following through on what you've just said, there's that sense of hopelessness that we experience.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, getting that hope back, and then it's our faith, whether it is in God or whether it's spirituality, but it's something, doesn't it, that gives you that sense of hope and anchors you back down. Otherwise, you're just going to spiral in that hopelessness, which then leads to depression.
Yeah.
Right? And I think for me, I've always been very spiritually inclined. I grew up in a Brahmin household. We just wired that way, right?
Yeah.
Like pretty normal. But I genuinely was always very spiritually inclined. And I think for me, like just even how having my daughter and the connecting with my own inner wisdom, and that was my faith that anchored me to even have my own miracle child. So I had a strong faith. But when it came to the point of the decision of separating from my husband at the time, I honestly, and I got this like inner intuitive hit that this is not true. I was very angry with God. I was actually, angry, confused. I was like, well, why did you make me have a baby with this person? I was really like so confused and baffled. It's like I followed like my intuition. I followed that guidance, which led me to have a child with this man. And then literally 8 months later, you're telling me, no, you're not meant to be with him. And I remember the date, 8th of November, 2018, and she's 8 months old. You can't, like, all the eights are literally lined up. Now, in hindsight, that's so obvious. And it just was like, suddenly I just got this strength to say, this is not happening anymore. And I need space from you. We separated on that day. So remember, you said 2018 as well, didn't you? Like clearly there's something, but we won't go into that, but it's just a coincidence.
The year of the purge.
Yeah. That it's happened on that year.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like ingrained in me. 8th of November 2018, she's 8 months old, and it was just like, no.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was this sense of like a little bit of, oh, what do I do now? It was, like I said, lost that faith a little bit, lost that faith in my own internal intuition and wisdom. I was literally like making it up as I go along. I was like, well, where does this go? This was purely like, just didn't make sense. It wasn't like how I've done anything before. No one's obviously given us a roadmap on how to divorce, right?
No.
And it took me a very long time to just get back into feeling normal before I could even start the divorce process. I didn't even know what to do.
Yeah.
I was very clueless, and more like, quite, now I look back, actually, it was probably the right thing I did. I was just very present in the moment of just going with things day by day. All I know is I don't want to be. And I remember, like, there were people around me, and it's his side of the family in particular. They're like, so what are you going to do? Is he going to come back? And I was like, no, not yet. It's like, I didn't know. And it just went on and on and on. And then I think I was, like I said, the survival mode. And it took me a good, so 20, I think it was when we got to 2019.
Yeah.
Summer of 2019. And I took my daughter away to Menorca. She just turned 1. No, she turned 1 in March. It was in July. We went on to Menorca, and it was just me and her went on that holiday. It was like a pivotal moment that I can do this.
Yeah.
Like, I could do this single parent. I just did it on my own, and it was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I remember my dad saying to me, like, oh my God, he rated me. When someone rates you for something, like, I felt like my dad was like rating me, like, wow, I was expecting to pick you up from the airport and you're going to be disheveled, and you look like you've got this. And I think this sense of like, okay, now I'm ready to start, but I still didn't know what I was doing. Prash, I had no idea. And I think that's when I started looking at, like, there was this thing, meetup.com, and something like my intuition was telling me, oh, look at what support groups are out there. And I found there were divorce groups, there were single parent groups that you don't know until you look.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember joining, it was like specific one, it was like Asian single parents group. So I joined that, and I just stayed with it. And that was like at the back end of 2019, but I wasn't really active. I was just kind of on the sidelines in this, because I had a WhatsApp group, and I was just taking everything in and everyone else's experiences. And then when I was ready, like it was back in 2019, coming into 2020, I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to start. Then we had lockdown started.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, I still don't know what I'm doing. How do you do this during lockdown, right?
Yeah.
And then I mentioned in the previous episode about going to Greece. So that all happened during lockdown. And then it was literally once I'd got back from Greece, and I was in this group, and I started becoming more active in that group. Like, I started asking more questions. I started asking about, well, how do I do this more amicably? I started speaking to solicitors that were online. So during lockdown, they were really generously giving their advice. So I took advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. And I found my route, so to speak. I think it was in October 2020, where I actually, sat down with my husband at the time, because we're still technically married. I said, right, this is what we need to do now to start filing for divorce. And if we want to do it amicably, this is the way to do it. And we started that process in October 2020. And by March 2021, literally, I remember this, just before my daughter's birthday, we got a decree absolute.
Wow.
Within that period of October 2021 to March, no, October 2020 to March 2021. What's that? October, November, December, March, April. Oh, I can't even count. But October, November, December, March. Oh, 4 months. Oh my God, yeah. 4 months. I was going to put it. Yeah, within 4 months, it flowed. It really just flowed, right? And I think the reason it flowed is because I took my time.
Yeah.
In all honesty. And in that time, it was then regaining my faith back in God, in my own intuition to guide me.
Yeah.
Like, trusting myself that I've got this, that I'm going to follow, that, I'm not going to just find how other people have done it. I'm going to do it in my way. Yeah. And I think this is why, like, I preach this so much to my clients. You lead the way. You can make up however you want. You don't need to copy someone else's roadmap of how to live or how to do divorce, create your own roadmap. And that's what I did. I was like, I lived and breathed. I created my own roadmap, and that's what it led to. And I think for those people who are divorcing and they've got kids, you've got to think long term here.
Yeah.
You ain't got rid of that person. I remember when the decree absolute came in. I'd be interested to hear how you felt when the decree absolute came in. Like, it was just like, is that it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a bit weird. It was a bit of an anticlimax.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's just a piece of paper, right?
Yeah, but did yours come in an email? Like, mine was just in an email.
No, yeah, sorry, mine wasn't emailed as well. Yeah, it was shared via the solicitors via an email. Yeah, I actually saw it like a few weeks ago. But yeah, no, yeah, you're right. It was like, it was a bit of anticlimax. Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Kind of thing, right? But I think the emotions for me that followed after was like, thank God it's done. Like, I've got come to the end point. This is what I've been working towards, right? But something interesting as well that you kind of like mentioned there is when you talk about your experience, and the fact that it ran so smoothly as well for you was because you took your time, right? And I think a huge thing to point out here is because you had that time away from your ex-partner, and then to file for divorce, like what was like 2 years down the line?
Yeah, pretty much. Because if 2018
Yeah.
and then 2020 I started the process.
Yeah. So like almost 2 years down the line, right? Of filing for divorce. So I think a huge part for you that was different in comparison to mine was by you doing that, you allowed for any emotional frustration to be removed, right? So by giving yourself that space, your ex-partner that space, and then actually coming to filing for it and then only taking 4 months, that's amazing, right? Because it ran smoothly, whereas mine was a bit more frustrating on the other end because I feel like they were still back and forth, and then once families got involved as well, that's when things started getting messy. And then me and my ex-wife were still in that frustrated phase as well. And then it took a while for me to really get my mindset right to focus on the end goal. But then just kind of touching back on like spirituality as well, and you mentioned there's a couple of things you mentioned, I just kind of want to elaborate on it, but it was like a kind of way to kind of look at it as well is like God, and I guess this is where I kind of found my faith back in God as well, and that is God doing this to make you suffer? Because if you feel that way, you're going to be the victim. Or is God doing this to cleanse for something greater to come? And I think that's the way I started looking at it and that's why I mentioned like 2018 was a purge, because it's like all the bad things were being removed out of my life at that time. And it was like, these are the things that are no longer serving me, but they felt normal. And now they're being removed. And so looking back at it now, I'm like, well, it was truly a cleanse, right? Because over that 3 year, all mine was just shy of 3 years it took, right? So including, sorry, obviously the divorce took a year and like just shy of a year and a half, and then the property selling again, it took like another year and a half. So just shy of 3 years, the whole process for me took, which was painful. But I think once the decree absolute came through, I did have some sense of relief from it because it was like, right, it's done now. But then it transferred to, right, we've got the house to sell now. We're still trying to get through that phase. And like, how do I manage this now? So that kind of added another layer for me because of that complication there. And I'm guessing it was kind of different for you, right? Because it was like because you gave yourself that nice couple of years break, just to kind of figure things out, find your way, figure more things out for yourself, right? And learn more about yourself, I guess, in that process. You were able to kind of come to the point of filing and say, well, this is going to be nice and smooth, and 4 months done. Amazing. That's the best case scenario I've ever heard.
But you've got to see what's the legwork I did prior to that.
No, of course.
Right? So I love how you described it, like it was a cleanse. Right. So, and it wasn't like I was letting life happen, but it was my getting back to believing again, rather than that fight of, which that dialogue went on my brain for a long time of, why did you make me have a baby with him? Why? And then I was playing out different scenarios of, well, I could have divorced him then, couldn't I? And then I could have had a child with someone else. Like, it was, sorry to swear, but it was a head fuck. It was the biggest head fuck you can imagine. Because the same year my daughter is born, 2018, back end of that, it's telling me, this is not the man for you. It's just, I can't explain how much of a head fuck it is. Right. So it took me to get my head around that, literally, and feel that into, well, hold on, I needed to regroup. And I felt at that time of when I was regrouping, it was a bit dysfunctional. I didn't have it all perfect. And if that version of me had suddenly started a divorce process, I can guarantee you, again, if there was an alternative universe and there was impatient Shweta that started that divorce straight away, it would have been a car crash, messy situation.
You had to put in that groundwork, right? So for the 2 years that you did have that space, I guess, like, you took that time to figure out everything and, work through your healing, right? Effectively.
It's like
Mm,
self-healing, and also like what do I want that to look like
mm,
post? And the fact that this is more than just doing a divorce.
mm,
That is just one part of the equation. There's still more to it. And I got
yeah.
that intuitively. There was still a part of me that was thinking very long term.
Mm,
And in a way, I'm glad, because like for me, when the decree absolute came in, it was actually an email.
mm,
And you're not going to believe this, like, but even the email title said your divorce is now complete.
mm,
Right. So I haven't even opened this email, and it's just there in the title. And then I
yeah.
remember feeling a bit like, huh? Like,
Yeah.
I can't explain it. Like in my body, it just felt like, what? And then it
Mm,
was just like a pause, and I opened it up. And I remember at the time it was still during lockdown, and my ex-husband came round to see my
mm,
daughter. And he's obviously clearly got the same email, your divorce is now complete. And we just looked at each other, we're like, so is that it? And then there
mm,
was like a nervous laughter, and he laughed and I laughed.
yeah.
It was just like, so is
Yeah.
that it?
Yeah.
I still remember it.
Yeah.
And it was just like, so, and then it was, yeah, we've sorted out things legally,
Mm,
and that needed to happen. Right. And it was fortunate that there wasn't too much. It was a little bit bumpy. And I know for him, I can't speak for him, but I know something that a mutual family member said to us is that he's still got to go through a lot.
mm,
So he was still coming when I started the divorce process. I think for him it was like, oh my God, this is real and it's happening. It like hit him then,
yeah.
whereas it had already hit me way back before.
Mm, yeah.
Right. So he was only in that 4 or 5 month period, he was
Mm,
processing that, oh my God, this is over.
yeah.
I'd been doing it for the last 2 years, and
Mm,
he'd been in this limbo.
yeah.
And so our healing journeys are very different. But the end outcome was, well, haven't really got rid of him, have I really, Prash?
Yeah. No.
We just got a piece of paper saying we're divorced, but really we're still connected because we've got a child together and we still got a co-parent.
Yeah.
So what on earth does that now look like?
Mm,
And we're
yeah.
not in the ideal real circumstance, because lockdown is not reality in the long term, is it?
No.
This isn't going to be the reality where you just come and see your daughter whenever you like. No, it's just because it's lockdown and she's a
Yeah.
baby,
Mm,
and I don't want her catching COVID.
yeah, of course. Yeah.
So it was navigating that as well, of a structure that's going to work in co-parenting. And I think once I'd got my faith back in
Mm,
God, my own spiritual, started trusting my own wisdom again,
mm,
I felt like I genuinely feel like I felt God was with me and carrying me,
mm,
like through my toughest times. Like, I like what you said, that it was like a cleanse, and it was like a cleanse and a reroute,
yeah.
and also a sense of like, we've got you.
Yeah.
And I think that faith that gave me hope that I've got this, and I
Yeah.
can navigate this choppy water, and now navigate into co-parenting. And
Yeah.
just like I made up my own roadmap of how I want to navigate divorce, I can create my own roadmap of how I want
Mm,
to co-parent. I don't need
yeah.
to follow someone else's.
Mm,
And I think the support groups that I was part of, a little bit, they helped me
yeah.
to kind of, I took a little bit of one person's doing a little bit of that to create my own little way of co-parenting with
Yeah.
my ex-husband.
Yeah.
So it's important to have the tribe around you, because it's, even to date, the
Mm,
people that I met in those groups, in those single parent groups, are like really close friends of mine,
mm,
really dear friends, because this is an ongoing journey,
yeah.
right? And it's finding those groups of people that are going to support you ongoing.
Yeah.
And I guess this is probably more so for particularly those people that are divorcing, that've got children.
Mm,
Yeah, because I think, Prash, like with your journey, in a way, it sort of ended when you got the email, right? The decree absolute. And I know you had to there was the things with the houses. Was that all done by the time you got your decree absolute?
no. So that still took
All
another
right.
year and a half. Yeah.
Yes, right. So you had to navigate that still. So you got the piece of paper saying you're officially divorced, but there's
Yeah.
still
There's
things
still all
after
this.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's still
Yeah.
anchoring yourself, still staying healthy within
Yeah.
yourself in the midst of unhealthiness that might be coming from her.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think, obviously with my situation, it was, there's no children involved. So it was like almost like I get a clean slate to start with without having any contact with this person anymore. But
Mm.
then, like I said, like the decree absolute came through, but still another year and a half went by of still owning this property, joint property. And even the property as well. Like I tried so hard to keep it because I truly wanted to try keep it for myself. Because my ex had chosen to move out. I tried everything to try and keep it, pay her out what's fair, whatever the house was worth. I was going to do all, properly, no cheating, because karma comes back around, right? So it's like I've got to do it properly, if if I truly want to keep this house. But every angle I went down, or every avenue I went down, it's almost like the universe was like, nope, not gonna work. Nope, not gonna work. So in the end, I recognized I was fighting so hard to keep this property when it clearly wasn't working. In the end, my one of my cousins, the one who introduced me into like law of attraction, but to be fair, yeah, both of them kind of talked to me about like, well, what's the universe kind of telling you right now? What's the signs? And every road I went down was just like, no, it's not going to work. So I kind of realized, okay, I've got to just sell it now. So that's when we kind of decided, like, okay, well, rather than me trying to buy my ex-partner out of the property,
Mm.
let's just put it on sale, because I just need to cut all attachment here. And I realized why now, right? Only now that I am doing way better and I've rebuilt my life now, I recognize why. Because in order for something greater to come, the things that were in my life at that point had to be removed,
Yeah.
right? And again, just kind of going back to the faith in God, right? And this is where I had to put my faith in God, like recognizing, like, well, yeah, I fully give in and I trust you now to lead the way for me. Like, I will trust you and I'll follow the process, right? And that was it for me as well. And just believing that something great was to come was was something that always stuck with me. And it was true, because I chose to believe that, versus if I was depressed, if I was, when I moved back, I actually moved back into my parents' house once the house sold. But like if I was, curled up in the corner crying in my bedroom every day, I wouldn't be where I am today now if I was doing that. So like, I've had conversations with people before when I've talked about like the law of attraction and manifesting, like, and I've heard it before where people have said to me like, yeah, but don't you think it's just fate or luck? It's like, well, it can't just be luck, because if I was doing this, the negative scenario, I wouldn't have got to where I am now. But because I chose to believe in God and the universe, that and trust and put my trust in them, that everything will work out as it should, right? That's why I'm here today now. This is
Mm.
why I've achieved these things. So but yeah, I guess I had the opportunity to kind of have a clean slate and start from fresh once the house had sold. It was like, right, 2021 is not going to be my year, and this is truly the year that I manifest the things that I want. And it happened. It all happened that year. And I guess this is going probably a bit topic for another episode, um but yeah, just kind of go back to the faith in God stuff. Like, I think it's super important to find your faith in God, and you may need to go through something, to make you recognize that you need to get that faith back if you do lose it. But obviously, like I said, for me, it was my grandma passing away, and then how the events unfolded after that. What was the one thing for you that changed, or stopped you from being so like angry and or maybe even bitter, right? Like towards God.